Sometimes you need to just pick a direction, and you may not know if that's the direction that's right for you, but within 3 or 4 weeks, you're gonna figure it out. There's word on the street that it takes 21 days to build a habit, a routine in which you remember to do that thing. It's not a habit yet. You're still intentionally remembering to do it. And that's where the power of streaking comes in, because now if you've gone through those first 3 weeks, you realize, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. And now it's keep doing it. You're gonna have to still remember. There were days I needed to remember to laugh, right? There were the weeks in this quest of overcoming my imposter that I had to think about, well, what can I do to make myself uncomfortable? You have to be intentional with it in order to create great things with your life.
Welcome back to the Sparks of Gratitude podcast. I'm your host, Randy Sparks, and we've got a great show for you today. Thank you for joining us. We've got gamification expert Caitlin Johnson here today. Welcome to the conversation.
Hello, Randy. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, I am excited for this because you have a mind and an ability to teach and help people achieve things that are important to them that I don't quite understand. Because everybody's minds work differently. And I've learned that you help people of all different personality and mind types find a way to set and reach meaningful goals. And so I'm excited for us to learn about that. And of course, how we can plug gratitude into this whole thing.
Oh gosh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I would love to talk a little bit about your background and how all this came to be. But before we get started, everybody, please remember, we would really appreciate it if you like this and subscribe to it, or give us a review and give us some stars on the audio platform you're listening to, because it really makes a difference and we can find amazing guests like this. And let's get on with our conversation. So, Caitlin, you've got years, 10, 20 years of experience working in this area. So could you tell us a little bit about it and how in the world you ended up doing what you're doing?
Oh, and it's always a wild story where you end up, and you never know where it's going to lead going forward. So when I started my career right after college, I've always been inspired by the idea of, and the fact that we spend twice the amount of our waking hours at work than we do with our loved ones. So for me, it was always a motivation on how can I help people make the most of their career journey and all of those hours that they're investing in their career. And I think all of this comes from a moment where I went to go see an astronaut. My dad and I share a love for space and aeronautics. We're NASA nerds. And he took me when I was probably 12 or 13 to go see Guy Bluford Jr., who was the first African American in space. And so this was at a kids' science museum. And the one thing that I remember him saying that has literally guided my entire career, there was a child in the room that asked, how did you know you wanted to become an astronaut? And he said, with just the joyous laugh, I just found something that I was good at doing, and I found a way to get paid to do it. I was like, wow, so simple, but oh my gosh, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to find something that I'm good at and that I love doing and find a way to get paid to do it. And so inspired by that comment and the idea of we spend so much of our time at work than with our loved ones, how can I find ways to make an impact there? So my journey started with human resources. I kind of thought that was the way to go. And then as I started to narrow my niche, it was more into leadership development and training, helping people have the skills and the resources to be effective. And then it slowly started to get into more strategy and execution. So laying the foundation from an organizational standpoint to help people understand how to connect their skills to meaningful work. And then this idea of gamification came up in 2014, started to kind of make the scenes. But even today, not many people are familiar with this term of gamification. And so I'll share, it's the idea of turning something into a game that isn't a game to begin with. So using game design tactics, game design strategies to make something more intrinsically exciting to get involved with. And I had a leader that I was working for ask, how can we tap into the hearts and minds of our hourly associates? And can we use gamification to do it? And candidly, Randy, I was blown away by that language, period. I'm like, who is this man and what is he saying? But I want to know more. Like, that aligns with my mission. of just connecting people to meaningful work and loving it. And so that was when my journey into gamification and game design and building strategies to intrinsically motivate people to have fun and do meaningful work kicked off.
Well, I love that story of getting you from, a child and seeing somebody excited about, finding what they love and finding a way to do it, and then the evolution of you kind of on this path until somebody asked that question. I mean, that's so powerful how you said, it's like, "Who is this guy?" That he asked
Yes.
that question that provoked that thought pulling you into something new, a new
Mhm.
adventure on how to solve a problem differently.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and I did end up finding, I asked some questions. I'm like, Where do you get a statement like that? Like, what language are you talking?" And, it stems from change management, and there was actually a really great book that he and his team pointed me to, which was called Switch: How to Change When Change is Hard by
Yeah.
Dan and
Yeah, I know
Chip,
that book.
Heath. Yeah, and on page 5, it says, "In order to help people change, you have to tap into the hearts and minds of somebody." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sold. I love this change management language."
Okay, and so gamification, so game theory of taking that and plugging it into the workplace, into people's
Mhm.
lives and stuff like that. Well, what in the world is game theory? The
Yeah.
strategies
Well,
for games, and
yes.
how in the world do we do this? How does it work? How do we make all of this a game and make that exciting?
Yeah. So I'll clarify. There's game theory, which a lot of people are familiar with, and that is actually something different from game design strategies.
Okay, well, that's
Hi,
what I mean to say, game
yeah.
design strategy.
Game design strategies, yeah. Well, and game theory, I actually had a really amazing conversation with a professor at the University of Missouri who was helping me understand game theory, trying to help me understand game theory and how it was different. And it's just a language I can't even repeat with you today. I'm like, well, that is fascinating, but it's just there's a difference between what I do and game theory. But anyways, game design tactics. We play games voluntarily. We have fun when we play games. And we also play games differently. So when you understand the science and the psychology behind how people play games, you can design strategies to purposefully tap into that motivation. Now, some of the viewers and listeners may think of that and be like, well, isn't that manipulation? Right? If you're going to try to get me to do something by intrinsically motivating me or having fun, because there's articles out there on how gamification can be manipulative, and I would agree if you have the wrong intent behind what you're trying to get people to do. But I'd also argue, isn't sales manipulative in some way, shape, or form? So if you connect game design tactics to meaningful work and purposeful objectives, then how can we use game design tactics to motivate us to stay focused on achieving those meaningful goals? And so that's how I use the strategies when I'm building corporate initiatives, training programs, and I also have a coaching program on how to gamify your own personal goals using these tactics and understanding how you play games.
Well, I think that would be a good place to start digging into this because this is likely going to be published right before the new year. And maybe we can talk about that as how people can approach goal setting because it's a common time for people to think of their
It is.
resolutions and what's going to happen
Yeah.
in 2025. Or if somebody's listening to this many years in the future, that would be awesome if people are still listening to this. But how to approach stepping into that new beginning of setting
Mhm.
goals, for example, the new year.
Mhm.
And, how can you maybe give some takeaways or instruction for people to approach that versus traditional goal setting? Hey there, everyone. Did you know that beyond hosting the Sparks of Gratitude podcast, I am also an estate planning attorney and I love gratitude, and my law firm is proud to sponsor this video. Since 2010, in my law practice, I have designed and delivered customized peace of mind with sophisticated estate planning made easy. So whether you need foundational estate planning, including revocable trusts, wills, powers of attorney, and healthcare directives, which is what most people need, or you might need advanced strategies such as irrevocable trust for asset protection or advanced estate tax planning, I am here to guide you every step of the way. Because at the end of the day, your peace of mind is my peace of mind. You can visit randallsparks.com and I can get started helping you plan for the future today. Now back to our podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think about the law of diminishing returns, and I'm careful with how many goals that I set for myself, because the more we try to accomplish, the less actually gets done. So really trying to narrow down what is the epic mission of this upcoming year that I want to focus on. Like, what is that? And a lot of people come up with like words and themes for the year. So it's similar to that, right? What is the epic mission? And that's actually one of the first things video game designers think about when they're building a game is what is the epic mission? What is the purpose? What is the reason someone would play and keep playing? So if you think about what is my epic mission that I want to achieve by the end of the year, a really macabre way, but a serious way of thinking about it is ultimately, if you were to say in your gut, like, what do you want on your tombstone at the end of your life? Really thinking about the impact that you want to make. And then starting to narrow it down to what could that look like that I can get done in a year. And for some people, that makes a lot of sense and they can start thinking about that. For others, that's still way too broad because it's like, well, I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow, let alone at the end of the year. What do I want to accomplish? And so when I think about game design tactics, it's what if we were to just think about the next 90 days in this next season, in this next quarter? What is it that you want to work on accomplishing? And so every game design strategy that I build is 90 days long. And then this allows for you to change, adapt, seasonality, different challenges come up in life. And so now you're not a goal failure, but you're a quester. And so it allows for adaptability and for you to change what's going on. And a lot about gameplay is exploration and discovery and learning from your failures. So whatever you set as your quest for the first 90 days, you're going to learn, are you successful at it? Did you set the bar high enough? Do you need to edit it into the next 90 days? So I talk to people about building quests on their way towards goal achievement. And then I actually avoid the word habit. At least I try to. It's really ingrained into our language. But I don't feel like habits necessarily work for us anymore. They're daunting. It's hard to break habits. It's hard to create habits. It takes a while. And so what I do is I create streaks on the way towards habit creation. So what is the consistent or consecutive action that you can take daily or weekly to be able to track progress on your way to creating greatness in the world? So Randy, I'll share one of the first streaks that I tested and played with was to laugh once a day.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
It wasn't at the time.
Yeah, tell me
Because
more.
I was not in a good headspace.
Okay.
Very just cynical, was looking at things with a negative lens. I have a tendency to hyper focus on things. And so just the blinders were going up for me. And I wasn't experiencing the joy in what I was doing. It was like a slog, right? I wasn't excited to do whatever the day was proposing. And so I said, well, if I'm going to try this streak technique, let me try laughing once a week or once a day and see how that goes. And the brilliance of it, though, really is I recognized I laughed so many times. And then I would find reasons to go purposefully laugh, like make a joke with my kids, or, goof off with my husband. And so it was intentionally helping me understand I am a happy person. There are things that are going on that are hard, but I can do this. And so it inspired me to just be more joyful, not take life so seriously, kind of turn the blinders off a little bit. And it was a really powerful streak for me.
That is powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I want to dig into a little bit because did you notice that you actually laughed more than you thought you did?
Yes,
Um,
100%.
or did you begin laughing more than you thought you would? Maybe both of those?
Both. Yeah, both. So I like to use different apps to help me keep track and then sometimes apps aren't always great because it's another thing to keep us on the phone or a screen, right? So you can easily use a sticky note or just kind of track, physically. But I love checking things off. And so I had this app to help me keep track of how many times what was I laughing, and again, my goal was once a day. And so as soon as I laughed and I would kind of swipe and check it off for that day, and then in about like 30 minutes or an hour, I'm like, oh my gosh, I laughed again. Ooh, bonus, bonus XP. I get to cross off that I laughed more. And so it became a game of identifying, oh my gosh, there it is again. I laughed. And oh, okay, I haven't laughed in a while. Let me go see, check on the girls, my kids, and see what they're doing and have a little fun. So it worked both ways. It helped me recognize how many times I do actually laugh and then go laugh on purpose.
There's so much I love about your choice to make laughter your streak,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
your streak goal, your streak, whatever you call it. Um,
Yeah.
One, I think that relates so directly to a principle and practice of some positive thing like gratitude, because I feel so deeply that when I repeat sometimes a guest on this podcast named Al Switzler said, "You get what you see, and you see what you seek."
Mm.
And what I see in you is you're seeking the moment to laugh. And
Mhm.
when you're gonna get what you're seeking, right?
Yes.
And when
Yeah.
I'm practicing gratitude, when I'm practicing finding laughter, that's what I'm going to see. That's what
Mhm.
I'm gonna find. If that's what I'm looking for, I will find it. And so,
Yes.
um, I I love that, and then when you gamify that and make make everything I mean, and then on top of that, all the dump of positive chemicals and high frequency vibration that your body feels after that, I
Mhm.
imagine you started to feel more joy in the slog of the day.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. And so there's two things that are important in creating this streak. So if anyone wants to create a streak for themselves with whatever the case may be, and feel free to borrow, steal my streak of laugh one time a day. I think you're gonna have a lot of fun with it. So one, it's the consistency and consecutive action. And two, it's a way to track that because it's so easy for us to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of the day of the week of our life that we forget we do good things and we only focus on the failures. And so having a tracking scoreboard of some way is really important in game design. You got to know if you're winning or not. So finding some way to show yourself you can do these things and you can do hard things. I'll share with you that I am right now in a 90-day quest to try to conquer my imposter.
Interesting.
I was sick and tired of second guessing myself, right? Like I know what I'm doing, but it's such a natural thing to think like, am I good enough? Especially when you're doing something you've never done before. And so I am, let's see, I think 10 weeks, 9 weeks out of the 12. I started in October and I'm going to go through the end of December. Here's what I learned 3 or 4 weeks in, one, I realized I'm really resilient and I'm going to go do it anyways. Like, even though I feel uncomfortable. And that was the goal. It was find something every week that I'm uncomfortable about doing and do it anyways instead of second guessing myself and try to conquer that imposter. And so I realized I can again do hard things. And it's the discovery and the joy of doing it to build my resilience and knowing that I can do it. The other thing I realized is that my imposter is not going to go away. It's always going to be there. But here's where I kind of made it a little fun. Super Mario. Have you played Nintendo and Super Mario,
Oh my
Randy?
goodness, you are now you're making me joyful. So,
Yeah.
and now I've
Okay,
got
so
my kids playing it with me,
Oh,
so
absolutely, right? Yeah. So you know Bowser
yeah.
at the end of the levels, right? Like he's the big boss that you have to defeat. But you don't ever just defeat him once and is done. He comes back.
Yeah,
He
you
keeps
keep
coming
getting
back.
stronger the next time.
That's exactly right. And so when you realize, I was like, "Oh my gosh, my imposter is Bowser." I conquer him once, but then next week he's coming back and he's just different and I need to work on figuring out the right actions and the behaviors to overcome him this time. And so when I realized my imposter is basically Bowser and he'll just keep coming back, I'm like, "Well, that's fine. I defeated him last week. I'm going to defeat him again this week."
Oh, here's something I think about that is you've just kind of broadened my mind there, made it fun and gamified it with something I identify with since my youth is playing Super Mario. Um,
Mhm.
I think of imposter syndrome, which who doesn't identify with that
Mhm,
at some point? And I had a realization recently that, of course, I feel imposter syndrome. Of course, I feel
mhm.
that. And it's actually an indicator that I'm moving forward to the next level.
Yes! That's exactly right.
Right. And so, and then your example of being in the game in Mario, it's like, well, duh, it's so obvious. It's because I
Yeah.
passed through that. But then if everything is easy, I'm not
Mhm,
moving. And of course,
mhm.
I'm going to feel imposter syndrome because I am stepping into something I've never done before.
That's right.
Yes, I'm uncomfortable. Yes, I feel inadequate. And I'm like, that is just showing me that I've made it to the next level.
That's exactly right. So when you feel that ultimate discomfort, you are about to conquer Bowser at the end of that level. And then you conquer him. But here's the thing, it starts again, right? You've just leveled up into another level. And I love what you're saying about the movement, because if we don't keep leveling up, then that's when we feel stuck. That's when just the negative thoughts start coming in. That's when we start swirling into maybe depression and anxiety, or both, because we're concerned about the past, we're concerned about the future. But movement, leveling up in life is so important to take action. And that's where the streak starts to reinforce. It's like, what movement do you need to help yourself take? For me, it was laughing. Then it was, okay, let me overcome my imposter, because I want to change my mindset on how I view looking at the word imposter and those feelings that come with it. So
Amazing.
when we think back to resolutions, think about what movement you need to create in Q1 in the first 90 days, and create a streak and track it.
I like this. Okay, so to kind of synthesize and pull it all back together as we start this vision is what is my epic mission for the year? You know, the big
Yes.
epic mission. And then we say, well,
Yes.
how do I break that down into these 90-day quests? And the word
Yes.
quest is amazing. I love it because it's the adventure. It's like, oh, well, let's embark on this adventure. And it's
Yes.
adventure that's stretching, but that we can reach. And then we break it down into streaks.
Yes. That's exactly right. You
Okay.
got
So
it.
did
Mhm.
I kind of
Yeah.
bring it
You did
back?
it very well. Yeah.
All right. Well, and now what? What help can you give all of us listening to maybe beginning that process? How do I sit down and ask myself those questions to get this going?
Oh, to ask yourself the questions on what?
Um,
Epic
well,
mission or quest or
yeah, I guess just to if I'm sitting down and saying, okay, I've got a blank page, and this is kind of the introductory framework that you're sharing with us of, and then I'm saying, oh yeah, that's exciting, and then I sit down and I got my blank page. It's like, okay, well,
sure.
where in the heck do I start?
Yeah. Well, I would recommend people look up the concept of Ikigai, a Japanese idea which stands for reason for being.
Okay,
And
Fiki guy, how do you spell that?
yeah, I was just going to say, I have to write it in order to see it. It's Ikigai. Ikigai.
Ikigai.
Yeah, and this idea is actually becoming more popular because of Blue Zones. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but there's a Netflix show called Blue Zones. There's also a great book about it, Blue Zones. The idea of Blue Zones are locations on this earth where there are the oldest living human beings. And the author went to these locations to research what is it that contributed to these long living individuals. And in one, I think it was Okinawa, maybe not. But, anyways, there's a village in Japan where there are some long living human beings. And one of the factors that the author found is that they have this ikigai, this sense of reason for being, and they don't necessarily retire. They're always working towards something. There's always a reason to get up and contribute to the community. And so if you look at Ikigai, there's a map of 4 circles that interconnect in the center. And the center is that sweet spot of that Ikigai. And the 4 circles are, what do I love doing? What am I good at doing? Those are 2 very different things. What does the world need? Another way to say it is, what problems exist that you would love to sink your teeth into and help support? And then what can I get paid to do? I love this map because it helps you think big picture. When I was going through it, I was like, "Oh, I want to be a goat yoga instructor." But then I was like, "I don't know if I can get paid very well to do that and make a living, right?" And so it helps you think big but then also get into reality of, well, is there value in this skill? Does the world need it? And can I get paid to do it? And so when I first started going through this, I realized, gosh, I love teaching and training and helping people learn. And I'm really good at project management. I don't love it though. The world, what does the world need? Oh gosh, we are just stuck. To our point about movement. When we're stuck, we're stale and we're stagnant and we're not creating in the world. So how can I help people become unstuck? And then what could I get paid to do? Well, I could coach, I can consult, I can train, I can facilitate. And so I started to put all of this mapping pieces together. And that's when I started to build my business.
And tell us the name of your business.
My business is Bold Bird Consulting, and Bold Bird is my avatar, so to speak. It
Okay.
represents who I am. Yeah. Yeah, it represents who I
I wanna know
am.
more about that.
I've always done bold things. Not and I'm not courageous. I wouldn't say I'm courageous. I'm bold. And I think sometimes bold comes with like a certain sense of adventure and avoid not always looking at the risks. Like you're just moving forward anyways, right? So I'm not going to exactly jump out of an airplane. That would be super courageous. But bold in just asking for what I want in life, connecting with people to figure it out, going after what I love, even though that's hard, still doing it, persisting. I see bold as training for an Ironman, pushing myself to do uncomfortable things, to start a business. That's bold. To craft the career that I want in life. That's bold. And that's thrilling. So for me, I've done little bold things throughout my life. And then the bird part is I'm 5'3". I'm a petite individual. And my mom would make fun of me as a kid and say I'd only eat on Wednesdays. Like I was just always a pecker, right? I would peck at things. And so here I am. You could see me as maybe this unassuming petite gal, but yet I have bold, fierce energy. And so for me to be a bold bird just constantly reminds me of stepping into my passion, stepping into my energy that I have in the world and helping other people see it too.
So did this bold bird identity that you created that exist before you started your business? And then it was obvious to call it bold bird, or did this all kind of happen?
It happened. It was there, but I don't think I ever labeled it
Mhm.
or identified it. And I think that's what's so cool about becoming an entrepreneur is that you learn so much about yourself and your identity grows as you build your business of who you are as a person and what you're building. And it's your business is an extension of who you are. At least that's how I see it. And so I've grown so much through this.
So, another question, or maybe not a question, but maybe I'll make a comment on this. So, I
Mhm.
love that your conversation about being bold, and you are the bold bird. I would say that you are also courageous because what does
Oh,
someone
thank
who's
you.
courageous do? They step into the darkness. They step into the next
Mhm.
level. They stand up, boldly and courageously to defeat Bowser, right?
Yeah.
So, when you're stepping into the fear to
Mhm.
to go beyond what your imposter says you're capable of, that's courage. That's courage to step
Yeah.
through into the unknown.
Yeah. I guess I look at it as stubborn persistence. Maybe that's another definition of courage, right? Like, I'm just gonna do it anyways, and yeah, but thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I like it, and it's very admirable, especially to see that from the outside that somebody else can do it gives hope to the other,
Mhm.
that it's possible, right?
Mhm.
Well, if that person can do it, and there's reality to this. I mean, I read a book once, maybe off topic, but it was about flow state. It was called The
Yeah.
Rise of Superman by Stephen Kotler, and it was amazing. I love that book and kind of research on flow state, but I may be even misquoting what book this came from, but anyway, the same concept. The concept was like breaking the 4-minute mile or
Okay.
the first person climbing this rock face, as a rock climber. There were several examples given. I hope I'm not quoting the wrong book, but
Mhm.
the lesson is the same, is that so many people believed that wasn't possible, but then as soon as somebody accomplished it, all of a sudden everybody started reaching that as well because
Yes.
they
Yes.
now believed that it was possible. They
Mhm.
knew it was possible. And so
Mhm.
seeing somebody else do it just creates that hope and belief for others to be able to do it too. And so that's why like you sharing these tools and
Mhm.
especially your own experiences on this because you're saying, "Guys, I'm my own experiment."
I've done
Um,
it. Yeah. Mhm. Everything that I've coached on these game designs, I've applied. I actually was unemployed for 8 months during the pandemic, and for 6 of those months, I was just sitting behind a computer screen applying for jobs and getting instantly rejected because of applicant tracking systems or, whatever the case may be, and I realized, "I'm not playing this game right." 6 months and I'm getting nowhere. And so I dug deep and realized, okay, Caitlin, you know all this information about gamifying things. Why don't you gamify your unemployment? And so I did, and I created a quest around networking because it's really about who you know and how to get out there, right? You can't just sit behind a computer screen. And so my goal was to network with 5 people every week. And some weeks I would surpass that. Some weeks it was a struggle to even get the 5. But within 3 months, and here's that brilliance of the 90 days again, Randy. Within 3 months, I found a job.
that's so
So
cool.
everything I'm talking about, I've done.
Well, and there's the example of your streak again. You
Yes.
heard what your streak was gonna be and just
Yes.
did it,
Yeah.
and I hear people repeat things of like, "What if I just didn't quit?"
Mhm.
Keep the streak.
Yeah.
You
Keep
know,
it
and
straight.
then
That's right.
then
Yeah. Streaks are super powerful because the longer you have them, oh boy, the harder it is to break them. Now I'll share that I did break a streak once, and this was with Duolingo. Have you tried
I
Duolingo trying
have.
to learn a language?
Yep, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, in fact,
Yeah.
my
It's
daughter, we before
powerful.
we started the conversation, I was commenting on your Legos in the back and kind of the
Yeah.
Japan Lego and the,
Uh-huh.
um and my daughter, she studies, she's so determined to learn Japanese, and she just studies herself for hours, and it started
Yeah.
with Duolingo, and now she studies other things, and so I admire her streaks.
Yes. Yeah, it's a powerful tool, and you do not wanna piss Duo off, like, that little owl gets so mean, and I had a really amazing streak going, and then they've got some cool design elements of streak freezes, right, which I appreciate because there's times when you might forget or be unable to do it, so giving yourself that grace of just picking it back up and having enough points to kinda give yourself that streak freeze. But oh my gosh, one time I completely broke it and I didn't have any streak freezes and it was demoralizing. I didn't go back to that app for like a full year.
Okay, this I
Yeah,
wanna
so we
dig
be
in deep
careful.
to this
Yeah.
because I wanna know what how do we plan around that? Because
Yes.
I have this issue where if I have a streak and then I break it for whatever reason,
Mhm.
then I'm just like, "Well, screw it. All bets are off. Now I'm just gonna
Yeah.
dive into, self-destructive behavior." I mean, this could be
Mhm.
something simple as like, well, every night I read, or I do
Mhm.
my 10 minutes on Duolingo, or
Right.
I've got this streak of sobriety. Like, let's think of,
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
really impactful things in our life that
Yes.
could self-destruct. But
Yeah.
what if somebody misses a day?
Yeah.
How do we deal with that?
Yeah, well, I definitely do appreciate the streak freeze, and there's even I'm not a golfer, but I've read that there is also a tactic in golf too, where if it like goes off, if the ball goes off course or something, like you can like drop it across your shoulder. I don't like I forget. There's like a word where you can
Yes.
still play again.
Uh-huh.
You can stay within the game, and so giving yourself that grace to be able to pick back up sometimes is important. Or it's what, yeah, you broke it, you broke the streak, so the powerful aspect of game design, I believe, comes with a mindset. A gamer's mindset is what I call it. And it's the desire and willingness to start again. So if you're going back to Mario, if you fall off the wall as you're running, you go back to the start and you start again. And what happens is you learn, okay, well, I should jump a little bit earlier the next time. I'm going to try something different. So if you apply that gamer's mindset of, well, what did I learn? Instead of hyper focusing on the failure, focusing on what did I learn and what could I do differently. So for me, when I break a streak, I ask myself those questions. One, does this streak still serve me? Do I still need it? Or should I just gracefully close that streak out? And that's another reason why I like the 90-day quest is I'll streak within those 90 days. And then I'll ask myself, do I still need this? Or can I retire this streak? Can I close it out? Is it no longer serving me? So it gives me an out. Whereas when we think about habits and goals, gosh, it just feels so horrible when we can't reach it. But applying the gamer's mindset would be, well, what did you learn along the way? And even if you don't achieve your actual quest in, the first season of the new year for your New Year's resolutions, the idea is, what did you discover along the way? Because sometimes you need to just pick a direction, and you may not know if that's the direction that's right for you, but within 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to figure it out if you need to adjust your direction or double down on your direction. And so I have coached over 70,000 leaders with these game design principles. And one of the things I found is there's word on the street that it takes 21 days to build a habit. And there's also word on the street that it can take a lot longer. So it's like, well, who's right? What I have found is that it takes 3 weeks, roughly 21 days, to build a routine in which you remember to do that thing. It's not a habit yet. You're still intentionally remembering to do it. And that's where the power of streaking comes in, because now if you've gone through those first 3 weeks, you realize, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. And now it's keep doing it. You're going to have to still remember. There were days I needed to remember to laugh, right? There were the weeks in this quest of overcoming my imposter that I had to think about, well, what can I do to make myself uncomfortable? You have to be intentional with it in order to create great things with your life.
So, a question about different personalities and the different type ways people think.
Yes.
And how does that come into this? And is this more effective with certain types of minds than others?
Yes, 100%. So there are 4 ways that we like to play games. And this was research done by Richard Bartle, who is a British researcher and professor. And in 1996, which in the world of games is a long time ago, but he found that there were 4 main ways people play games. One of them he called killer. I don't actually like the term, so I call it a dominator. The dominator is super strategic. They're no friends in card games. Like, even if they're playing with their kids, they're still going to crush their kids, right? Because there's a learning lesson. Yeah, sometimes they're not very fun. Yeah. But they're super strategic, and they're going to find the workaround ways. Like, they'll read the directions, but then find the gray area to be able to win, right? Pros and cons with these folks. They can be really creative, they're going to be effective, and they're going to be efficient. Then there's achievers. Achievers, it's the joy of achieving all the accomplishments. They might want all the badges, all the trophies, have a trophy case to show off, their badges. This is the one that I connect with the most. So I shared that I have done an Ironman, and I wear a Garmin watch, and I want all the freaking badges on this darn thing.
Yeah, if it's not on Strava, it didn't happen.
That's exactly right. It doesn't count if it's not being tracked by some device. So the achievers want to check things off and get things done and collect all those things. There's an explorer. The explorer knows how to win, but it's not about winning. It's about going on the side quests, discovering something new, kind of pushing the buttons, seeing what happens if I push this red button. They're going to be super curious. And then the 4th is a socializer. They also know how to win, but they want to win together with other people. And it's about community and collaboration. So streaks may not initially motivate an explorer or a socializer. A dominator and achiever, absolutely. Because it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to win. I'm going to beat my best. And I love the idea of a streak. For an explorer or a socializer, you're going to want to think about, for explorer, what fun, creative thing could you do in which that streak would support? So instead of maybe doing the same thing every week, it might be doing something new every week to help you achieve that quest. So, for example, I, as an entrepreneur, have a different streak of doing one important thing every week to continue to build my business. And that allows me to move where I need to move for that particular week. So this week, Brandy, I could be like meeting with you and having a conversation and sharing and marketing a little bit about what I do, getting the word out around gamification. And so having that broad streak of do one meaningful thing to help me build my business every week allows me to have the flexibility to explore. For a socializer, you may want to create a streak with somebody else. Do it together. It might be your significant other or a friend, and together you're streaking to create that consistency. So I'll give an example. I run with a friend. And so right now it's the holidays. It's a little hard to keep a streak. But, in the off season, let's say, we'll try to keep a streak together of meeting at least once or twice a week.
Yeah, and that makes it so much easier to get out because somebody's waiting for you. I benefit from that so much. So, um,
Yeah.
and do you think people overlap in those different quadrants, those 4 areas?
Absolutely. We do have a default preference of play. However, different environments will trigger one of these 4 game player types. So, for example, actually, I gave an example of a tactic I use for everything other than the dominator. I do have a tactic for the dominator. So, I'm writing a book on how to gamify your goals, and it's going to be a choose your own adventure. You get to pick your preference of play and then follow that narrative and complete the activities throughout the book. And so I am quietly, although every time I share this, I'm no longer quiet, right? I'm quietly competing against James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. His book is phenomenal, and I definitely recommend you get it, but I also want you to get mine. And so I'm studying him. I'm watching, like, what did he do to get his book out into the world and have it usually be the number one purchase book in the new year? And how can I replicate that and maybe even beat him? So those dominators love to go after somebody and say, like, I'm going to get there before you or better than you. So absolutely, you can play the strengths of all 4 of these game player types depending on the environment that you're in. I don't always feel like I need to crush my competition like a dominator, but there are certain things that fire it up.
Well, and doesn't that seem that it's a motivation because you recognize and you honor the value that James Clear has brought, and
Mhm.
your intention isn't to crush him, that's the motivating force to pull you forward to be better than
Yes.
yourself,
Yes,
right? Because you play the
that's
game,
helping me move.
you
Yeah.
win, and
Mhm.
then you go get dessert afterwards together,
Yeah.
right?
Hey, James Clear, if James Clear's listening to this, I'd love to go get dessert with you
Yes, if
after.
he's listening to this, come on the show.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that would be
Yeah,
amazing.
wouldn't that be amazing? I happen to have
Yeah.
read his book, I don't even know how many times. I can't wait to read
Mhm.
yours. So
Thank
tell us
you.
about before we finish this conversation, tell us about your your hope to finish the book. I mean, I'm sure you've got
Mhm.
your
Yeah.
goals.
Yes, I do. I have my ambitions. Yeah. I'm hoping it's going to launch in 2025. So this coming year as of this recording, I'll share I have a streak of I think I'm at 121 weeks of doing one thing every week to help my book make progress because we all live busy lives. And so if I didn't focus on keeping this streak, this book would never get out in the world. And so the streak is helping me stay focused on this meaningful goal that I have for myself. And so with that streak, the hope and intent is that in this new year, I'll be able to launch it. It's evolved so much. It started out as a business book, and then I realized, no, I really want just leaders and individuals in general to be able to achieve their goals. And I always knew I wanted it to be a choose your own adventure. And I thought, well, maybe it'll be choose the adventure if you're an organization and you want to gamify your programs, or if you're an individual and you want to gamify your personal goals. But I realized, oh my goodness, I am writing this book in the way that I gamified my goals. And if I gamify my goals as an achiever, Randy, if you're a socializer and someone who appreciates connecting with people, you're not going to take the same path as I did. And so it dawned on me the book must be a choose your own adventure in order to intrinsically motivate the readers to keep reading.
That's such a genius realization. That's so
Thank you.
exciting for you to see that. Well, I imagine it had to bubble up to see
It
that
did.
because you're coaching and you know these truths, and so you limit yourself to one of the 4 types if you're just writing it through your own eyes.
That's exactly right. And I realized I was going to be leaving out a lot of my audience that I want to tap into because they're not motivated in the same ways that I'm motivated.
Yeah, I get it. My wife is very much like you,
Mm.
and I could learn a lot from that, but once I learned that that is what motivates her, now I know how to connect with her better,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
what helps her feel accomplished
That's exactly right.
is different than
So
what helps me feel accomplished, and so but is once we realize that, now we're not kind of, like, not understanding and arguing with each other, we notice and can honor that, in the other.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
it actually understanding these things doesn't just, serve, in my mind, to help me reach the goals and accomplishments I'm seeking, but also to connect with those around me who are doing the same and understand them and
Mhm.
empathize with them. Um,
Yes.
and so I'm excited for your book. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it for my whole team. I'm gonna have
Thank
everybody do it and
you.
see it through their eyes.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
this is exciting. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And I hope everybody that's listening, this is your chance to think about your epic mission for 2025 and
Mhm.
break that down, just like we've talked about this in the show. Have your quest for 90 days. Think of what are the streaks that make sense for you
Yes.
and follow Caitlin. Her book's going to come out and you're going to want it.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, Randy.
Yep, this is wonderful. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.